Hi everybody, I'm Lorraine Sish from stampwithlorraine.com, and I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the US, and I'm here to talk with you about how to get some inspiration. A lot of my subscribers ask, where do you start? Where do you get inspiration from? How do you know where to start to make a card? Well, here is one place to go. The annual catalog, the mini catalog. Any of the Stampin' Up! Catalogs have lots of ideas in them. It's not just a catalog, it's an idea book, and it's made to inspire you. Every item in here has a project to show or a card of some sort that you can actually copy and save everything from that project image. And it's called casing, C-A-S-E, to case, is to copy and share everything. So that is what you can do with a lot of the images from the annual catalog. I'm going to show you just how to do that today. We're going to go to page 71, and we're going to use the Forever Fern set, and we're going to copy and share all of the cards that are shown for this stamp set in the annual catalog. But we're not going to stop there, because what if you don't have this set? What if you don't care too much for that particular card, something about it? Change the colors, change the stamp set, change some other little elements of it, and then you can come up with your own version of your card, and you don't have to start from scratch. You have a basic sketch or basic layout to start with. So that's what we're going to do today, and we're going to start with the cards that are exactly on that page, and we're going to just copy them. But then I'm going to show you some others that you can do with that too. So stay tuned to the very end, because you know I have several different versions to show you. So hope you enjoy the video, and if you like it, please give me a thumbs up down below. Give me a comment. Tell me what you like. I love the feedback. If you don't have a demonstrator, I'd love to be yours, and you can sign up for my newsletter on stampwithlorraine.com. Okay, hope to be in touch soon. For today's card, we're going to do our stamping on just 4 little squares. And today I'm using the Forever Fern. I'm going to use a little leaf, little spray in 3 different colors. So I'm using Garden Green, and I'm using Crushed Curry, and Real Red. Each square is going to have a little bit different color. And then I'm going to do my sentiment in Old Olive. So now, even though these stamps are bigger than the square, we're just going to do a little piece of it, and we're just going to overlap and have those little sprays coming in, say on the corners and whatnot. So going to start with, I'll do this one in Garden Green, this one in Crushed Curry, and this is going to be our focal point. So again, if you have little strips of white, I have a big bin next to my work table here of all my white, so I was able to cut them down to 1.5 inch squares. So I'm going to just bring in a little of this little cluster of leaves and just bring it in on the side. So even though your stamp is big, you don't have to use the whole thing. You can just use a little piece of it coming in there. Okay, and then we'll do another one. Now, I was told when I was looking at this the first time, I thought this was some kind of berries, but then in looking at it again and asking some people, I was told it's eucalyptus. But I'm going to do it in red right now. Let's pretend the eucalyptus is changing color for the season. I don't know if does it do that. But anyway, and I'll tell you why I'm doing it in red. I'll show you in a little bit. Okay, so we're just going to bring that in. So you don't need the whole thing. Just make a little cluster of these plants. And then Garden Green. We'll use this bigger one and just use a little piece of it. Bring that in. Just from the corner, from the bottom. And then on the 4th square is going to be my sentiment. Now I'm just going to show you something that kind of helps me. Even though this little stamp here fits this small block, sometimes while I'm stamping, I find it a little hard, or my eye makes it hard to focus a little bit because of the bevels on the block. Sometimes it's hard to see exactly where you are. The light catches it, or it gives a reflection somehow. And sometimes I like to choose a bigger block, so it's a little bit easier for me to see where that image is. So even though this fits, and maybe if you can get over it, and maybe it's fine for you, but sometimes the angle, I'm seeing a little bit of reflection here, and I don't want to make a mistake. So I often just opt for a bigger block so that when I go over my paper, I can see through that very clearly. Okay, so we're going to stamp that in Old Olive. And one thing that's kind of nice about a font that is scripty and not particularly, so evenly straight, you have a little leeway in getting it straight. But I find this one a little tricky sometimes, because sometimes when I do put it down, it seems a little crooked to me. So even though some of the words are kind of straight and others are a little lopsided, you have to kind of play around with it a little bit and see what works best. Because if I do it too much in one direction, even though they're not all even, it just looks too uneven to me. So let's see if I can get it right this time. I've practiced a little bit. Okay, so see, that looks crooked to me. Maybe maybe it isn't, but some of the words are a little this way or that way, so that might be okay. But I'm going to turn it over and see if I can do it again to a way more to my liking. It's just this particular stamp. Okay, so I'm going to try to line up friend. That's the biggest word there. And I think that looks a little bit better. So sometimes you have to play around with it. Okay, so then these four, I'm going to show you, these four squares are going to be your focal point, but I'm going to show you ways to kind of step up the card a little bit. So that's why you'll have several different measurements and ways that you can go about this. So if you're following along, you might want to kind of wait and see if you want to do the stepped up version, or you want to just keep to the simple version. So this is, like I said, the basis of what we're going to be working with. So ahead of time, I put dimensional dots on the back of these and arrange them just in a square here in the kind of lower right side of the card. And you can have a really simple card, quick and easy, go right on your card base. Like that, you have a cute little card. Now, if this looks familiar to you, it should if you've been looking at your catalog, because I've done something called casing. So on page 71 is the Forever Fern stamp set, and up here it shows you how to step up your card a little bit. So as you can see, I've made this first one right here, and that's why I chose those colors, because I wanted to copy what's here. To case something is to copy and share everything. So this is not just a catalog, it's an idea book also, where you can use those ideas and then step it up a little bit. So the next thing that they show to step it up just a little bit is the middle picture here, where you can add a layer. This is 3 3/4 by 5, so a little smaller than sometimes I make my first layer, and then I glued a die cut on there, so all the same color. So your die cut now is like your background, so you don't have to have a background stamp. You can have a die as that background as well. You don't have to emboss. It's another option of how you can mix things up a little bit. So having that there, and then what I did was, and copying the catalog, I stamped the little things here, and I die cut them out, because with this set there are die cuts to match up with the images. So I stamped them and I just die cut them out and pop those up on dimensional dots. And also I have the dimensional dots on the back, so you can see there was one of my rejects. So now you know my secret. So then from there, you can arrange them onto your card. And then you have a little bit of a stepped up version using that same layout, or sometimes you can call it a sketch. Okay, so I like to, just for my purposes, I like to do the bottom right one first. That works for me, because then I could try to get it straight according to my card edge. And I'm also going to think about where this is. I don't want to cover too much of it. And I want some of it's the die cut of here sticking out a little bit. So I'm just going to sort of measure, and I think that's good. I'm also going to consider this piece, because I don't want this little edge showing. So I want that to be over. So I'm just kind of eyeballing where I want that to be. And then this is ready to go down. All right, then you just stick all the others on there. So then just starting with basic concept, you can change things up. You can change one element, you can change 2 or 3, and just see what works. Okay, and this one. And then, okay, this one, I want to show you how I cover it up now. I'm going to use the white side. I'm not going to use the stamp side. Think of where you want that to be. And then I flip it over, holding it securely, trim off the excess. Then I'll put my dimensionals on the back. I use the mini one, so I have some flexibility. Like take your pick tool for picking up these little guys. And then you can just line up where you trimmed to fit the corner. Okay, then you have your 4 on the back. Oops. And pull those off. And align it in your square with your card. Okay, so it adds a little bit more interest, something a little different, and stepped up a little bit from here, right? So, you know, a lot of beginners might want to just start with this. If you have some of the other tools and a little bit more time, you want to make it fancier, you can do this. And then if you looked at page 71, there's a third version of the same card where that first layer is embossed with the bark embossing folder, and then put on there as something a little bit more texture. And then this larger die cut that I used whole on here was cut apart so that we can glue those down in different areas. I had another little piece here someplace. Well, that's okay. I'll show you the idea. So you can trim some of these little branches off and put them in different parts of your card. Glue them down. And I wanted to show you in a place like this where you see the leaves are connected. It's like one is kind of over the other one. If I cut those apart, you will have to kind of trim it a little bit. Now this looks fine. But now this one looks funny because unless somebody came by with a hedge trimmer or little clippers, your leaf wouldn't necessarily look like that. So you might have to do a little adjusting and round off the edges a little bit so that it looks a little bit more natural. Okay, so something more like that. All right, then you can arrange these in places around your card and then add your other elements. I didn't put these on dimensionals yet, but I just wanted to show you the idea. I'll show you the finished product. Oh, there's my other little guy. Found it. Okay, and then the sentiment. So there you have your 3 stepped up versions from simply just casing a card, copying and sharing everything. Use the catalog. Okay, if there's a card that's in there, but maybe you don't particularly like the stamp set, well, try it with a different stamp set. Or you don't have that stamp set, or try it with different colors. I think this worked nicely with the neutral in the background so that those colors really pop. So you have just the plain and simple, step it up a little bit, and then a little bit more. So like I said, take those ideas and then transfer them to other colors, other stamps. And I'm going to show you some of those now. Because, you know, I don't just show you one little thing, right? Oh, something else you can do I forgot to mention. If you wanted to kick this up a little bit more with maybe more color, you can go over what you stamped. These are distinctive stamps, so they have a lot of shading and texture naturally in the stamp itself. But if you wanted to get a deeper, richer color, I have one over here that I will practice on. You can take your watercolor pencils. We haven't used those in a while, so I thought maybe I'd show you a little bit of that. And you can add a little bit extra shading if you want, or make those leaves a little darker. And then you can go over it with your blending pen and blend those colors together. Okay, just go like that. And even if you just use your blending pen on the ink itself, because the ink is water-based, it will spread that ink a little bit more. So maybe if there's a spot that's too light, you want to make it a little bit darker, you can do that. So you can maybe see a little difference where I used the marker or where I didn't. Okay, just to spread that ink around a little bit. So that's just another option for adding a little more color if you wanted. Okay, they come in 2 different assortments. There's assortment number 1, which is a set of 13, including white and black. And then there's assortment number 2 that has some additional colors in it as well. Okay, so let me just clean these up real quick, and then I'll show you some other versions of the same card. So using this layout as a sketch, we can make other versions. For this next one, I used Blossoms in Bloom because that comes with a beautiful, nice big die that I could use as my background. And I did this one in Smoky Slate. I die cut this big piece out and I used it as my background here. So, and if you look carefully, I left the centers of the flowers intact just for a little bit different look there. So it wasn't all just the filigree. So what I did was I carefully took out the big pieces after I die cut it, and I was careful not to punch these out. The smaller pieces don't come out quite as easily as the big ones anyway. So I was careful not to knock any of those out. One did fall out, but it was under here anyway. And then when I glued it down, I made sure to put glue all around those so none of them fell out while I was making the card or as the card is done. And this set also has die cuts for the small flowers. So I just took the 4 squares, 1.5 inch, and added my flowers, stamped my leaves from this little guy here, and also used the Thinking of You in the bottom corner there. So that's Smoky Slate. This is Petal Pink, and this is So Saffron. So I thought those gave a nice little pop onto the Smoky Slate. I decided to use, I was looking for big images. So instead of putting small little things in each square, I thought it would be fun to take this one big stamp from the Blessings of Home, and instead of starting with 4 1.5-inch squares, I just made a 3-inch square, because when I cut those in half, they will be 4 1.5-inch squares. So we're going to just stamp this big image right on here. Okay, often when your block is bigger than your ink pad, it's easier to bring your ink pad to the block rather than trying to go like this. You can also see better where your ink is on the block and add more if you feel you need that. Okay, and because this covers most of, about 3/4 of that, a little less than 3/4, I'm going to just go across most of that, leaving one corner a little more free. And okay, and then I'm going to add a little bit over here. We're going to put our sentiment, well, I did this one upside down, so you could always put your sentiment up at the top. Okay, I was hoping to leave the bottom free, but I wasn't paying attention to the direction of my flowers. But it could certainly work that way. You could put your sentiment any way. That's another way to mix things up, right? Okay, so I'm going to just ink the top of this a little bit and add a little bit more over here. And then simply take your trimmer and then cut that into 1.5-inch squares. So you can do this with, think about anything that has an image. You could do this with DSP. You can do it with embossed pieces of cardstock. You can mix and match something with an image or something, some DSP. All right, I'm going to cut these down to 1.5-inch each. Make sure it's straight. And then you can keep it together like a little puzzle piece, right? But just with little space in between, so it'll look like a panel. I should get something underneath that you can see that better. Here we go. Okay, look like a little window maybe, with the different panels. And then you could have room to stamp your sentiment there. So I wanted to make this one just white and black. So because this is white, I felt I needed a little border around it. So I took a 3 1/4-inch piece of black to mat these 4 squares on. Remember, these all together were 3. So then when we make it 3 1/4, you're going to have a 1/16 on the sides and space in the middle as well. Okay, or somewhere in between an 1/8 and a 1/16. All right, so this is what I ended up with. I put black behind those to mat these down, and I popped dimensionals on the back of the black. I used Hello from the Blossoms in Bloom, because that was a nice small sentiment. And I used the brick and mortar embossing folder in the background for that. So a very, a little bit more graphic look to that. Okay, just the black and the white. Okay, so just another idea, taking from that same idea of the 4 quadrants with your images here, popping something up and keeping the other dimensions the same for the layers. Okay, and then one more I have to show you. I wanted to use the ladybug punch because it's so cute. So I will show you quickly how to use that punch if you haven't seen it yet. So you have the body and you have the wings. You can stamp the ladybug first if you like on white paper with black and red or whatever color wings you want. Pink I've seen is cute. And then you can punch them out. Or you can just use colored cardstock, because these images are one side or the other, you don't have to put your whole paper in, which is nice. So just on one side, fit your black in there, enough to punch the body. And then do a similar thing with the wings, with the red. Punch out the wings. And then there's a stamp to put the dots on the wing. So I will stamp that in black using my memento. Just go right over that. And then you can just glue those together. I like to put some dimensional dots on there. So I'll take 2 minis, put them up near the tops of the wings, and attach them to the ladybug body. Okay, and then I wanted that to be hovering over one of my squares. So then I use the leaf, some of these flowers, combine some stamping with some, there aren't any other die cuts, but I fussy cut some of the things out. And I want a nice bright cheery card. So I pop that up on Daffodil Delight. So some of the things are raised, some of the things are stamped. And this time I just left this mat plain. I didn't put anything else behind it because this was just such a nice bright contrast to the other. I did try my typical Tasteful Textile embossing folder behind it, but for some reason I honestly didn't like it on this card as much as just something plain, because this is all plain, and I just liked the crisp contrast of that. So there you go. So just starting from casing or copying and saving something, start with something from the catalog. Find a simple design and expand on it. Okay, see how you can mix things up between colors and stamp sets, embossing or die cuts, dimensionals or no dimensionals. Mix up the order of things. Hold your card in a different direction. You could certainly do it horizontally if you wanted. Okay, but just find a few elements of a card that you already see, and half the work is done for you. That's often what is called a sketch, and that's kind of the basis of what my sketch program is doing. So I show people a layout, and then they can expand on it, and I show different ideas, and then a lot of the work is done. And it's to be honest, it's helpful for me too, because I already have the layout. I said, okay, I'm going to do another version of this particular card. So here are all our versions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And like I said, I didn't glue these all down, but I will do that later and show you the pictures for that. So these were coming in different directions. Okay, and you can mix and match these little squares. Some can be glued down, some can be raised for different effects. So there we go. There they all are. Okay, so hope you like it. Hope you get some ideas. Here's your challenge this week. Take this design and do something similar. Okay, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as mine, but just take that same idea, use it as your sketch, and then see what you can come up with. Share them on my Facebook. All right? Okay, thanks for watching. Well, I hope you're inspired to check out the catalogs and find some card layouts that you like, that you can make your own with your own colors, your own designs, your own patterns, your own different papers, inks, stamps, whatever. Take an element that you like about it and then expand on that. So thanks for watching, and hope you come back soon.